to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. We are here for some liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated conversation. Well, one way, anyway. I catch y'all in the chat. I try to get everybody in the chat. I'm sorry, I cracked myself up. Hey, listen, so a couple of things are going on tonight, just as a note. If you hear a little background noise, the reason being is because it's a little warm today. Not as warm as what it was yesterday, but it's a little warm today. And so I had to kick up the fan so I could make sure that the computer here that does all of the work doesn't get too hot and get too overheated. So if I all of a sudden spontaneously drop off, that might be a reason. And it's so anyway, I mean, it's quite hot, but it's not as hot as yesterday. We're about 10 degrees cooler than yesterday. The other thing is I made a few changes on the OBS broadcasting software in order to take advantage of a couple of things that this computer can do. And I'm not going to bore you with all the technical details, but let's just say right now I'm going to be monitoring. It looks like everything's good. So unless the computer overheats on me spontaneously, I think we're going to be all right. But you'll know that if everything just drops off, you'll at least understand either that or I'm being censored by the government, one or the other. Oh gosh. All right. So tonight, Matt Gaetz went to the TPUSA Student Action Summit, I think is what they call it, the SAS, and he did a speech that kind of pissed off a few people. He made a comment or two with regards to some of the lefty, groups. And honestly, I can't say that he was wrong in what he said, but what was classic was afterwards he got quizzed by some overzealous reporters. And I'm not going to play you the clip. It's already been kind of thrown out there. But the thing is that the reporter asked Matt Gaetz, what do you say to all the people who are offended by what you said on stage tonight? And he came back with a 2-word answer, which was essentially be offended. So that got me thinking. We've got this whole thing with regards to being offended. Like, if somebody's offended, you should automatically, apparently, bend over backwards to essentially make sure that you're not offending others. And if you do, you should apologize. And I'm going to be honest with you. I try to avoid some of those subjects where I'm going to, have to apologize for something. Like if I really hurt somebody's feelings and that person actually I care about and I care about them being in my life, then absolutely I'm going to apologize. I'm going to do whatever I can to try and smooth over the friendship. But realistically, I've been caught throughout my life. I've said stuff and some of it, I'll admit, has been a little insensitive. Okay. But the reality of it is that there are times when, you're just offended. And so I thought tonight I would go through a bunch of things that literally offend me. But I don't know where to go with it afterward. Like, I'm offended. Now what? And so that's going to be the crux of the program tonight. I also have an entry for the pet of the week. It is a feline entry, a very cute feline. I've got the picture up over here on one of my monitors, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I kind of hope that the person who submitted it actually shows up in the chat, hopefully soon, if they're not already here. And also, if I end up having a little bit of time, I do have a couple of comments about something that is, of course, happening in regards to Taiwan and Pelosi's visit that I think, came across today. And then also, I don't know if anybody has noticed, but the Fed leaked out tonight or announced tonight that they're going to up the interest rates by 0.75 of a point. So 0.75, a little bit farther up than what they are right now in an attempt, very weak attempt, in my opinion, but in an attempt to combat inflation. So that's something that got tossed out toward the end of the day here on the West Coast, as well as right before the show. All right, full jam-packed show, so let me go ahead and get it started. We'll start off with one of my favorite affiliates of the two that I have. They are, of course, both my favorites, but this one is really a good favorite of mine because I am a big supporter of the Constitution. And so, let me go ahead and bring that up. So, the Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence by the following three key points. 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, IOTC, that's India Oscar Tango Charlie, .whiskeymusings.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course materials and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.whiskeymusings, all lowercase, all one word, .com, to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you want to just purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution, which has a 100-year warranty against manufacturing defects. I mean, look at the quality of this thing. This is just absolutely awesome. They use stitching to stitch the pages in. The pages themselves are water resistant, and it's an absolute wonderful little book. Has the Constitution in it, and you can get that and support the show, by the way, by going to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. That will actually dump you directly to the page in order to go ahead and buy the Constitution, the little pack here, the little wonderful little, this is like a little keepsake item. I mean, I'm planning on passing it down. When I die, my grandkids are going to get this. But anyway, do me a favor and go check them out. The Institute on the Constitution, of course, but go check them out today. And I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate. And yes, I understand there are some people who are waiting very, very patiently for some information on the Constitution class. I have been distracted. I will admit that, for, trying to get things set up. I've had a few things that have occurred, and I am trying to get things put together for that. I did say it was going to be after the 4th of July. I was targeting the weekend after, and unfortunately things just have gotten a little bit out of hand on my end. It has nothing to do with you. Believe me, the Constitution class will go off. It's just a matter of trying to get it started, get the start date and everything else. Hopefully I'll have something for you really soon. Also, tonight, I'm actually going to finish off probably a little bit later. I'm going to finish off my Black Barrel, my Jameson Black Barrel. This is my favorite Irish whiskey. As you can see, there's not a whole heck of a lot left in the bottle itself. And so that's what I am sipping on tonight. And I am sipping on it out from, and I got to be careful because I got the fans running in here and I got a little napkin underneath, but I'm sipping on it this time with my old as hell shot glass. This was a shot glass given to me by my kids recently for Father's Day. By recent, I mean probably within the last couple of years. But anyway, it is my Hello Old as Hell shot glass instead of the America shot glass. Funny story with that. My son opened up the freezer. Now I keep my shot glasses in the freezer because I like to keep them cold. It keeps me from having to drop like any ice in or whatever, because I like my whiskey a little chilled. So he opened up the freezer door and the America shot glass dropped out. No need to panic. My son is a soccer player. He caught it with his foot and cradled it and let it drop, of course, to the floor in the kitchen as softly as he could. The problem is that I forgot to wash it. So I had to wash it. And then I realized that, I just washed it right before the show. It's not going to be cold. So it's actually in the drain right now, draining here in the studio. And I'll stick it in the freezer after the show. And hopefully it will be ready for either next week or potentially on Saturday, depending upon what I feel like drinking at that point. So that is where I'm at with the drink tonight. All right. Let's go ahead and get this party started. If you are on my other broadcasting platform like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you really want to get involved in the conversation, I highly recommend you come over to Rumble, sign up for an account. It's totally free. And then subscribe. That's totally free. And then you can join in the chat with the rest of my wonderful chatters. I have picked up a few subscribers over the last couple of days. So we have 211 total on a Rumble and 72 over on YouTube. So if you get an opportunity and you want to join in the chat, I know sometimes YouTube and Facebook can get pretty lonely because, not a lot of people are over there. I highly recommend you come on over to Rumble, join in the chat, get in with a lot of like-minded individuals who follow moi. I appreciate all of my subscribers, no matter where you're from. And also one other thing that I think a lot of people miss. I actually broadcast the audio to a service called Spreaker. And what Spreaker does is Spreaker is audio only. And so it passes it onto some of the podcast greats like Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts or whatever they call it. I do not have Apple iTunes or the Apple Podcasts, whatever. I don't have an account for that, so it doesn't go there. But if all you want to do is listen to the audio, and I try really hard during the show to make sure that I'm describing everything or describing and talking about what's going to go on in an audio format so that, those who are on the audio listening side who download the podcast and listen to the audio side get the full effect of the Whiskey Musings broadcast. So if you're interested in that, the live stream hits on Spreaker. It's Spreaker.com. You can sign up for an account there. Again, it's free. And then download whatever podcasts you want from there. Or you can listen to the saved version once they're posted up on Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to go through all of that because I don't think a lot of people know that I actually do have an audio portion of the program that you can listen to as well. And again, it's just great. I love it. And part of the reason why I'm telling you this is because one of my listeners contacted me this week and basically let me know that they had some challenges in terms of the visual side. So I wanted to make sure to highlight this broadcast so that I can, pass that along, that the audio portion does go and you can listen directly to the audio without necessarily having the video portion, although the video portion outside of my face is absolutely wonderful and spectacular. I work very hard to try and make sure that I bring relevant and high quality content to you because I love all of you, my subscribers, my listeners, my watchers, all of you, because without you, this show would not be possible. All right. So I'm offended, and I'm going to tell you why I'm offended. Well, let me first start off with one of my biggest pet peeves. I've mentioned it a couple of times in a couple of other episodes, but one of my biggest pet peeves, honestly, is the going in. I'm sorry, I got distracted. The chat came up and it was funny. I really dislike when somebody uses their freaking cell phone in the damn bathroom. Okay. That is my biggest pet peeve. Right behind that, not by much, is not washing your hands after you're finished in the bathroom. Those are probably my two big, huge pet peeves. I got a bunch of other pet peeves when it comes to driving. But they're not like up at the top of the list. So, the talking on the phone in the bathroom to me is incredibly rude. And unfortunately or fortunately, whenever I hear that going on, I will go and actually flush the toilet multiple times, like one right after the other, in an attempt to make sure that the other end understands that this person is actually talking to you from the public restroom. And I don't know what kind of success I get with that. I mean, there are noise canceling things and stuff like that just, but that really offends me. If you cannot take 2.5 minutes out of your day to stop talking on the freaking phone, to go into the bathroom and take care of business. And it's really bad when you're listening and you're hearing the guy in the next stall. I'll say it, the guy in the next stall who is, straining to like drop the kids off at the bus stop. And he's having a business oriented conversation on the phone. Talk about rude. I mean, I get mad if my wife even mentions it. She's actually even in the beginning of our relationship, she actually kind of didn't understand that limit. And I told her one time when I heard her, and I could tell by the echo that she was going into the restroom. I'm like, look, call me back in 5 when you're done. Okay. I don't want to be carried into the restroom, and have a conversation that way. I'm sorry. I just don't. That to me is absolutely rude and horrible. Okay. I am offended by that. So if you do that to me and you're not freaking playing around, then yeah. And I'm actually the one in the bathroom. I'm going to be flushing that toilet to make sure that the other people on the other end know what's going on. I am extremely offended in today's society. I am extremely offended if you do not wash your hands. I'm not talking about just walking up and like running water over and then wiping them off. That's not washing your hands, people. Okay. Washing your hands is actually putting soap on them, rubbing the soap around on your hands, and by health records for at least 20 seconds. Okay. Then running your hands under the water after that to rinse everything off. Okay, that's washing your hands. This little BS that I see guys do, walking up to the thing, running the water over their hands, flicking their fingers, and then checking themselves in the mirror, like, checking their hair or whatever, that just drives me nuts. And, especially dealing with pre-COVID era, before COVID, you would see people do this. I would see them at the airports. They would do this all the time. You wonder why planes have such a reputation for having germs all over. It's because the general public, honestly, is very, very gross, especially when it comes to washing your hands. All right. Now, there is a joke out there talking about a Marine and a Navy guy go into the bathroom, and they're both using the urinal, and the Marine goes to walk out. And the Navy guy goes and says to the Marine, hey, aren't you going to wash your hands? And the Marine looks at the Navy guy and says, well, in the Marines, we got taught not to pee on our hands. So, yeah, anyway, sorry, that might have sounded a lot better than what I thought when I first started. But anyway, so the point being is that, there are things that offend people and have legitimate reasons for offending people. Okay. However, one thing that I am seriously offended by under this current administration and this current regime of, in general, people who are attempting to grab and, follow through with all kinds of things is this. Now, let me bring this up for you here. This is an article that popped out. This is in Just the News. I got to bring it up. So Just the News put out this article, and the article title is 6 items that Biden has redefined, or 6 terms that Biden has redefined to further the agenda and to stigmatize opponents. Okay, so we have the first one, obviously, is recession. Now, for those of you that don't know, tomorrow they're set to release the GDP numbers for the second quarter of this year. And the current, by all counts, the current definition of being in a recession is 2 negative growth GDP numbers. In other words, 2 negative numbers. We would have to essentially shrink our gross domestic product output for 2 consecutive quarters in order to be considered that we're in a recession. Well, if you've been watching the news recently, the White House is trying to redefine that. Okay. They are trying to redefine what the term recession actually is. And that just, to me, it's like, that's the icing on the cake. I mean, let's just see what other terms they've redefined. We have disinformation. They've attempted to redefine disinformation. They've attempted to redefine the term domestic terrorist. I can tell you that they've attempted to redefine insurrectionists. They're doing it right now with the January 6th committee. They're trying to redefine voter suppression. Apparently, having voter ID and requiring voter ID is voter suppression. I would have thought that voter suppression was actually denying people at the polls, not like giving them options to make sure they are who they are and that they are proper and allowed to vote, like ensuring the integrity of their ballot. But hey, that's just me. And then they have the term illegal alien. It's now immigrants. We have illegal immigrants in this country. I'm sorry, but you know what? If you're here illegally, you're illegal. I mean, you're here, you're coming in illegally. You are not supposed to be here. That's kind of the way it is. Some other terms that I'm really frustrated with, honestly, man, woman. Taking those definitions and trying to redefine what they are in order to fit a narrative that they are attempting to push on the majority of the smart people in this country. And of course, I, like Dan Bongino, like Mark Kay, have the smartest audience that is ever been an audience in the entire United States or even the world. I know that if you listen to this podcast and everything, you are a very smart person. I get it. If you're not, you're here to learn, which is fine. I don't mind that. That's exactly what this podcast is for. If you're here to learn, that's great. I love it. But sitting here and trying to redefine words in order to fit a certain narrative, that's crazy. The CDC redefined the term vaccine in order to make it so that the shots were actually considered a vaccine, when we all know that the old definition, I even showed it on another episode, the old definition of vaccine included the fact that it stopped you from acquiring whatever virus it was designed to block. This doesn't do that. It doesn't block it. And YouTube's probably going to get all pissed off and freaking throw off, my whole thing. That's fine. If you're listening on YouTube, just jump on over to Rumble. But, as far as redefining words, they're changing the definitions in order to fit a specific narrative. That offends me because we're talking about terms that have been around for many, many years, centuries. Some of them could be derived all the way back to Latin roots. And this is just something that is, it's extremely offensive to me that somebody would want to do that. Okay. Now, here's another thing that has happened recently that offends me. And, you know, we have a discussion. We talk about the whole process about abortion, and regardless of what position you actually take on abortion, whether you're for it, whether you're against it, whatever. The one thing about having an intelligent conversation is you all have to start from a base. You all have to start from a common foundation. Once you've got that common foundation built, then you can start talking about nuances and changing things and that kind of stuff. Well, check this out. This is what Planned Parenthood decided to do. So one of the things that the pro-choice crowd has been talking about and hitting the pro-life crowd is fringe situations such as rape, incest, what they call ectopic pregnancy. And not too long ago, Planned Parenthood actually had on their website a definition that basically said that treatment for an ectopic pregnancy, which to be completely accurate is a non-viable pregnancy, meaning there is absolutely no way that that fetus is actually going to grow and turn into a human being. So there is a procedure that allows you to change that, to take care of that as a medical procedure for ectopic pregnancies. Okay. The pro-life crowd had basically said, look, a treatment for an ectopic pregnancy, a non-viable pregnancy, is not an abortion. It cannot be classified as such. And that's exactly what Planned Parenthood had on their website within the past week. I looked it up myself. But now apparently they've changed that language because, again, to fit with the narrative of trying to make sure that abortion is available for anybody. And realistically, what they're pushing for is you can have an abortion anytime you want, any day you want, all the way up to the point that that baby is actually, coming out and swinging the chain, from your private parts. Okay. And that's a little embarrassing to say, but you're basically coming out and, that baby is going to start crying and heads crowned, everything else. Honestly, this is just another method for the left to make the changes to try and gain a emotional validation over a situation that is an inconvenient truth for them. That literally is what we're talking about here. And so I'm offended that they want to try and change the language. And again, you've got to start from a common foundation. You cannot sit here and tell me that you can't, if honestly, if you do not agree with terminology and you can't come to an agreement on the definition of those terminologies, then you're not going to understand what people are talking about. You're not going to come to a consensus on what exactly you're talking about. And I see, like, Ben Shapiro does this all the time in his debates. He always tries, when somebody goes to try and challenge him in a debate, one of the things that he does is he basically brings up, okay, let's define the word, because if we can come to a conclusion where both of us agree upon the actual definition of the terminology that we're using, then we can move forward. This is exactly what the left does not want us to do. They want to keep changing the definitions in order to make it harder and harder for the right to actually be able to be on the opposite side and present opposite information with facts and evidence. Because if they can change the definition, then a lot of our facts and evidence become irrelevant because it's not fitting the same definition of the word. Okay. This is a direct page out of 1984 by George Orwell. And I just recently read it. If you catch some of my other episodes, you'll know I just recently went through it and read it. This is exactly what 1984 does. they change the words and they actually go back into history. The party does in 1984. They actually go back into history and change all of the definitions of every printed word, every spoken word, everything, so that the masses can't go back and look it up. And so one of the things that we do have to do, I think, is we cannot rely on these digital media that allow us to go ahead and make, that allow people to go in and make these changes when it comes to these words and definitions. Printed words, things like the Bible, the dictionary, a thesaurus. These are all things that, honestly, if you don't have a printed copy already, you probably should go out and get it, because sooner or later, that kind of stuff is going to get banned if we continue down this path that we are currently on in order to try and redefine our language in order to fit a specific narrative, in order to push a specific agenda. And that's exactly what the left is doing with these changes of these words. Now, another thing that I'm offended by the fact that we have people in our government system who are supposed to be working hard for us, who are supposed to be honorable and have integrity. In fact, the motto of the FBI in particular, I don't know if they've changed it yet, but it used to say fidelity, bravery, and integrity as their motto. Well, as we all know, the FBI has had anything but an integrity look over the past 6 years. It all started with the entire Russia collusion hoax, which we have since gained so much information that basically has put that thing to bed. We know that Trump did not collude with the Russians. We also know that the Alpha Bank connection was made up. Now, the Durham investigation is still going on. The wheels of justice move very, very slowly. The Alpha Bank suit that is based off of information that comes from the Durham investigation is also still moving as far as I can tell, but it's moving very, very slow. Okay. Now, Chuck Grassley today, or maybe, well, was it today? Let me see. No, yesterday. So, was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago. Sorry. 2 days ago, put out this press release. So let me show you what he put out. And I'm going to tell you, Chuck Grassley has been after this whole thing with regards to the Russian collusion hoax, in particular, the Hunter Biden laptop, in particular, all of these things. He finally has gotten whistleblowers inside the FBI who have essentially corroborated our already assumption that the DOJ and specifically the FBI has been weaponized to go after conservatives. In this particular case, they are talking directly about people who have talked about Hunter Biden, and that the FBI and the DOJ are covering up the Hunter Biden connection only because of the fact that and again, go to Miranda Devine's book. If you haven't read it yet, you should, because there is so much information in there that has been corroborated by literally the laptop from hell, okay, and has sat here and basically done a entire expose on everything that is essentially related to Hunter Biden and his pay to play, pay for influence, that kind of stuff. That's attached to Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was the recipient of the connection of those connections. That leans us toward things like whether or not Joe Biden is compromised by some of those connections, in specific, in this particular case, China, which we kind of, I got something a little bit later on that if I can get to it. So yes, actually, GH over on YouTube popped this up. and says, do you ever get tired of being angry about endless issues that have nothing to do with our lives? Who cares about Hunter Biden and why is he relevant? Well, I'm going to tell you why he's relevant. He is relevant for one and only thing. He's the conduit to go from foreign entities into our sitting president of the United States. Okay. Now, apparently this individual is talking about Jared Kushner. All right, look, I'm going to be honest with you, straight up, 100%. Republicans, they're just as corrupted, especially a bunch of those rhinos. Okay. Now, whether or not Jared Kushner was actually part of this problem or part of this issue, I don't know. He's not currently being investigated for tax evasion and going out and connecting with foreign entities and creating businesses and essentially laundering money from those foreign entities into his family. So right now, I mean, if something pops with him, then sure, he needs to go just as much as anybody else, because if we can't trust our government and we can't trust the people involved in our government, then it's worthless. Now, outside of that, right now, the sitting president that we currently have, who we are about to face off with China in regards to Taiwan, this is a problem. This is a compromised individual, and I think it is very relevant that we get to the bottom of Hunter Biden's connections and why and how that money got funneled between him and the big guy, 10%. All right. So, okay. So this is interesting in terms of the senior FBI and DOJ officials. Okay. So this is really interesting when it comes to this stuff, and especially involving Hunter Biden and the laptop. Now, the other key thing about the Hunter Biden and laptop, too, is the fact that not only did the FBI and certain intelligence agencies all deny the existence of the laptop and say that it was Russian disinformation, okay, not only did they do that, but they completely denied that the laptop was Hunter Biden's. The laptop is been proven and never at this point ever been said not to be from Hunter Biden or the Biden family itself, but the laptop has been proven to be his. And the information on it so far has been completely accurate and corroborated. And so this is why the Hunter Biden laptop is so important. And also because the mainstream media rushed to cover it up rather than allowing the story to play out and actually making a story out of it in some cases. You also have the New York Post that got completely kicked off of Twitter because of the fact that the mainstream media and the big tech organizations are part of this entire cover-up. So that becomes a big problem because traditionally the mainstream media should have been the stalwart balance to government corruption. That, you know, if you did something in government, then it was going to be potentially found out and taken care of. That's exactly what happened with Nixon and Watergate. You know, it was Woodward and Bernstein who figured all of this stuff out and everything else. They were investigative reporters that actually brought all of this stuff to light. And that's what the press as an independent entity was supposed to be. And as of right now, they're not even close. Okay. Now, we also have, not only do we have the insurrection or the issue with the FBI and the DOJ, we also have the whole concept of January 6th and the committee that's going on. Now, the one darling of the committee was Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony. That seems to be where they are, the left and a couple of rhino Republicans are focused on, is her testimony and everything leading up to during January 6th. There's only one problem, and I've talked about this on the show before. There's only one problem. There are several holes in her story. And realistically, if the committee was an actual true bipartisan committee who was after the truth, which I'm just going to set aside the whole idea of the constitutionality of this committee because it doesn't deal with any existing law. It doesn't deal with verifying that a law was enacted properly or anything else, all of which is defined in the Constitution for committees such as this. But this is turning into more of a criminal investigation, which is not something that Congress is not part of what the Constitution says Congress should be allowed to do. I can't think of the word right now. I had a word, it went in the mind and left right out. But anyway, so the point of this, though, is that now we see we not only have blown holes in her testimony. I mean, we're talking about the whole, steering wheel grab. She mentioned a specific vehicle that Donald Trump was supposed to get in. There is evidence in the form of video after his speech that he did not even approach that vehicle. He did, there's questions as to whether or not he was texting things. I mean, we've got the whole idea that he was the one that started the riot or started it by saying something in during the insurrection period, when the people were breaking into the Capitol House, and he actually was still on the podium. He hadn't even stopped his speech yet when damage was starting to be done at the Capitol building. So, all of these types of things add up to a likelihood that there is no culpability on the part of Donald Trump for the absolutely horrendous and horrific thing that happened on January 6th. Okay. But the media and the left-wing darlings have all wrapped their heads around and have wrapped their arms around Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony. Well, this came out today, and there's no corroboration of this yet. However, it would be interesting to see when or if it actually happens. But apparently, Cassidy Hutchinson on January 6th was texting back and forth and saying stuff like, "Stop the steal." She was saying that she wanted to see, she definitely wanted to see, not Air Force One, but Marine One running around with 45 still in it, so on and so forth. So it kind of blows a little bit of her credibility. I mean, even so much so that, now you kind of look at it and you go, okay, what changed from the time that you left? Which also there is some information that she supposedly applied to be a part of the Trump campaign office staff after the, after the January 6th and after he left office to go down to Mar-a-Lago, and she was denied. They decided not to take her. So you have to wonder about her reasoning behind this as to why she changed. Also, she fought against testifying for a long time until she got new lawyers. And then all of a sudden she went ahead and decided to testify, and she testified with, the information that she did, which again has already been kind of pointed out as being suspect. Now, whether or not it's actually a lie, whether or not it's completely fake, not 100% sure, at this point. However, again, it brings some questionality, some questions that need to be asked about what happened and why she is testifying the way she is and everything else. Things that normally would come out in a typical normal trial where you have both sides represented and both sides get a chance to cross-examine and examine the witnesses from both angles. And so this is part of the reason why the January 6th committee, well, even if, again, there's some question as to the constitutionality of it, but even if it is constitutionally acceptable, you still have the problem that the other side wasn't represented. There was no cross-examination. There was no corroborating evidence that was brought on both sides. And so, yeah, I mean, it's got some problems. All right. Now, and I am not going to say that. No, Mr. on YouTube banging crap out of me. I'm not saying anything. Anyway, okay, so to move on, we also have another proven liar in government. And I'm not saying that government people, there are government people in there that don't lie. I personally think that politicians, in order to get in as a politician, you kind of have to have a way to sort of mincemeat words, which is part of the reason why I have never gotten into politics. But this is another person as a part of government that's supposed to be the de facto leader, and we need to look at him and worship at his feet. Good old Dr. Fauci. So Dr. Fauci claims that he never recommended COVID-19 lockdowns, but yet we have video evidence, and it's out there, that basically has stated on multiple occasions that yes, he did recommend to the president that we shut down the country. Don't know how you can interpret that as anything other than lockdown. That he recommended to lock down schools. He recommended to mask up everybody. In fact, he recommended doing 2 masks, and that you shouldn't be out and about. He has several statements that he has gone back and forth on that are, again, video evidence, proven evidence, that is out there with regards to him saying that he believes in COVID-19 lockdowns. Now, what's worse is there's an article. Again, it's a little uncorroborated right now, but there was an article that came out that he actually thinks that we didn't go far enough in lockdowns when COVID-19 came about. So I'm sorry, but right now, credible, understanding and being, thinking that our government has our best interest in mind and so on and so forth, it's kind of questionable. I'm seriously questioning all of this, and this is why you should really be suspect when it comes to your government and what's happening with everything that's happening around in the U.S. government scenario. So, speaking of that, there was a poll that was made. I got to find it here. Let's see, where did it go? It's not that. Hold on. Here we go. All right. So there was a poll that was taken that this was done prior to Independence Day. So that's really the crux of this, but it was done by the University of Chicago, Benson Strategy Group, and Public Opinion Strategies. Here, let me go ahead and pull this up so you can see this. And it's regarding our precarious democracy, the extreme polarization and alienation in our politics. Now, we all know that Biden's approval ratings are in the tank. I mean, roughly 3/4 of Democrats don't even want him to run again. We also know that almost, I won't say it is, but almost 2/3 of Americans disapprove. It's right around the last time that we looked, last Saturday, it was at the 60% mark for his approval rating, disapproval rating. So that being said, it's no wonder that you're going to see this in the polls. Now, here's one of the things that the poll found. And this is just kind of interesting to me because of the fact that it's actually, it doesn't really matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. A majority of Americans agree that the government is, quote, corrupt and rigged against everyday people like me. Now, 73% of voters who describe themselves as a strong Republican and 71% who calls themselves very conservatives and 68% of rural voters all think this way. Now, a bare majority in 51% of voters who call themselves very liberal also agreed. Okay, and that's a key point. So just over half of those who are very liberal agree that the government is corrupt and rigged against everyday people. So it's not just me that's thinking about this. Okay. Now, as far as the elections go, a majority, and by majority, I mean, just a little over 50%, 56% say that they generally trust elections to be conducted fairly and counted accurately. Now, one of the main things that we have in our government and our system of government and in this country is we are supposed to have faith in our elections. If we don't have that, then what's the point? This is part of the problem in terms of the faith in our institutions. And I've already shown you, we don't have faith in the FBI anymore. We're barely having faith in our elections. This is a huge problem. This is just as much of a problem, if not worse, than the inflation that's going on right now. And these are things that, honestly, the Biden administration, if they had their act together, could actually fix within the next 2 years for the rest of his particular term. At this point, though, there are nearly half of Americans, in terms of a combined number, nearly half of Americans, 49%, agreed that they more and more feel like a stranger in my own country. Totally agree with that statement. Absolutely. This is not the country that I grew up in. It's not even close. Okay. Now, I have all of the links to all of these articles and pieces of information in the description. You can go and grab them and go and take a look. But this is part of the complete divide that we have in this country that is a total mess. It is a total mess right now. And all of it, I can tell you, a lot of it stems from the last 2 years. Okay. Now, the whole Taiwan thing, I've talked about this multiple times. Taiwan is a key strategic ally to our well-being here in the U.S. and in most of the Western world because of the fact that over 90% of the semiconductor chips that are used in a wide variety of not only products, but also military applications come from Taiwan. The threat that China brings by threatening to go into Taiwan is a big problem, and it is something that we need to address. Now, this is why the connection between Hunter Biden, the Chinese CEFC, and Joe Biden and his possible implication of issues, this is where this becomes a big challenge. We have to close that loop. Now, if Joe Biden literally did nothing, doubtful, but if he literally did nothing, then fine. Okay, everything's fine. We're good. Same thing with Donald Trump. If it is proven that Donald Trump did not do what he is supposed to have been doing, according to, some people, then fine. It's all well and good. We are all well and good with that. The challenge here, though, is that there's more smoke over Joe Biden than currently over Donald Trump when it comes to malfeasance, misfeasance, and any other feasance that you want to throw in. So here's an interesting question. So last episode, I talked about how China has, Nancy Pelosi has a scheduled visit to go to Taiwan. China has come out publicly and said, hey, if she comes over here, we're not going to rule out anything all up to and including military action. This is a problem because according to Reuters, let me pop this up. According to Reuters, Biden is supposed to have a call with Xi tomorrow to talk about the Taiwan tension and apparently to cover Ukraine. So this is an interesting challenge because, again, you have that suspected connection, which is a little bit more than a suspected connection of China and CEFC and the CCP to Hunter Biden, to Joe Biden, in terms of a monetary link, quid pro quo. He's already been on tape saying he's quid pro quo Joe with Ukraine and the money going over there and trying to get that prosecutor fired who was ironically looking into his son's company, Burisma. Okay. That has already occurred. It is evidence. It is out there. It's on video. Now you have this potential connection between the CCP through Hunter Biden and his business dealings to Joe Biden. And now you have Joe going over to Xi and giving him a call in ahead of Nancy Pelosi's visit. And he's already come out on record and said he doesn't think Nancy Pelosi's visit is a good idea. Okay, so that just by itself is a little suspect. Okay, we have some potential challenges here that honestly, reflect potential corruption within our government. And this is not something that is, that we should just throw away and ignore. We can't ignore this. This, honestly, is just as bad as the whole spying on Trump's campaign with Russiagate and the whole collusion hoax, with the entire thing with regards to all the way back. We can take this all the way back to Watergate. Everything that's been going on is something that definitely needs to be investigated. Our government and the people who represent us should be, and yes, this might be wrong for us to put them on that pedestal, but they should be a honest integrity person. They need to understand the responsibilities that they've been given, the weight of that responsibility, and be able to act with integrity, honor, duty, and be trustworthy to be able to sit in those positions. We haven't had that in decades. And so I'm literally offended by all of the shenanigans that are going on in this administration and in government in general. There's a lot of things that are happening that I don't agree with. And if you watch this program and go through any of my other episodes, you'll see kind of where I'm at with some of that, especially the most recent ones. All right. That pretty much covers all of the articles and everything else that I wanted to discuss. So now it is time for...
Please check your mailbox. A new message has arrived.
It is time for the Pet of the Week. And this submission comes from Anna. And Anna has submitted her... And I got to get over there, so hang on. Let me close that off. And Anna has submitted a photo of her kitty, Riley. Now, apparently, according to Anna, this is a younger version of Riley. Riley, this picture was taken as his younger self. And I'm also told that Riley is famous in the fact that Riley has gained recognition as being the first place contestant in a office pet contest. So he apparently has some accolades that goes along with it. So he apparently has some well-deserved rest that you see in this photograph. And so thank you, Anna. I appreciate that for submitting the Pet of the Week. If you want to put your pet on, I do have one entry for next week, so I'm good for next week. But if you want to get your pet on the podcast and you want send me a photo to fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. The link is in the description. And I don't care, dog, cat, could be anything. I mean, I'll even take like iguanas and stuff like that. I'm an equal opportunity Pet of the Week person. So anything that you may have, other barring, I mean, I might freak if you send me a picture of your snake about ready to strike or something. But anything that you have. And for me, it would be even better if you could get them dressed up in some patriotic gear. That would be awesome. So again, if you want to submit that to fans, FANS, Foxtrot Alpha November Sierra, at Whiskey Musings, all lowercase, all one word, .online. That's fans at whiskeymusings.online. And we thank Anna for sharing Riley with us in this wonderful, cute little pose. He obviously is getting some well-deserved rest. All right. So I have one last thing that I do want to bring up, and that has to deal with what do you do once you're offended? I mean, I've outlined a bunch of things that I'm offended at, but what happens when you're offended? Well, I'm straight up going to tell you, absolutely nothing happens when you're offended. What does happen, though, is your reaction to that offense. So if you take it personally and decide to escalate and either get into an argument or potentially take it to a more extreme, say, violent level, that is on you. That's not on the person who caused the offense. So honestly, if you're offended, be offended. That's it. Be offended. There's nothing wrong with being offended. There's nothing that can be done when you are offended. So in that sense, Matt Gaetz is right. Be offended. And not only that, but if we're going to have a true free speech society, there are times where you are going to be offended. But the importance of that free speech is more important than your feelings getting hurt and being offended. Because the fact of the matter is, the principle of free speech, the ability for me and anyone else to talk freely in this society, is entirely more important than your being offended. And that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Thank you, everyone who has joined. I do see some questions as to who's Anna. Well, I'm just going to tell you, she asked me to use her name, Anna, not any kind of tag. So honestly, I'm not at liberty to say who that person is. If they decide to identify themselves, that's fine. But I am going to guess that they are definitely on Rumble. Okay? Now, I appreciate all of my subscribers. Like I said, thank you all for coming and joining. Thank you for the subscriptions. And I appreciate... Yeah, you flush. Oh, Day, I'm sorry. I'm going to throw this up here. I flush when I'm offended. You're right. I flush that crap right down the drain. And I try to piss off the other person. Anyway, when I'm offended. You're exactly right. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you Saturday on the Whiskey Musings broadcast, where I will have some more salacious news info and commentary, as well as the questions for whiskey segment. We'll see you next time on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody.